Okay, we rolling, baby, we're rolling.
Hey XGALZ.
Hey XXXGALZ. So we're back here today to do a little video podcast for you all, because as you know, we put up this week's episode on Wednesday, so all of you had something to listen to.
Something new, because we had to. It's so frustrating because we were so proud of ourselves last week because it's something that we hadn't done in so long, which was doubling our recording work.
And the whole idea was to leave this week free because obviously in 2 days we're doing Vicar Street, and we didn't want to be thinking of having to record because it can just take a lot of energy.
We just didn't want to bog ourselves with too much shit to do. So we had Jack over on Friday night in my house, and we recorded quite a highly asked requested podcast.
Super high request.
About astrology and how Jenny got into it, or Jenny's knowledge on astrology, and we kind of did a twist in it, which is obviously, that I'm from a very religious background, and how it was just a really interesting podcast. We're going to re-record it, so we will have it out, but it was just an interesting podcast in terms of how your upbringing can imprint you, my religious upbringing can imprint me, so it kind of definitely imprinted for me to stray from certain stuff, which I still do, like astrology, crystals, tarot cards, all that stuff I just reject because I don't want to go down that route. So that was it organically went that way. So now for the next recording, I think we're gonna we have that solid plan for the
I think that's a good thing about it, was that it actually kind of gave us a new direction for the pod. And I think when we re-record it, which we will, it'll just be me and Lindsay. I think I might try get a guest, and I think having someone else on would be interesting who is knowledgeable about astrology, just because otherwise it can just be me versus Lindsay. It's interesting to have a neutral.
But I think if we're having someone with astrology who's also into it, then it's just two against one.
No, I just mean there's someone who's neutral in between, because I think that neutralizes it a little bit.
Yeah.
That way. Because if we just kind of focus on their opinion rather than us being me trying to convince you or you trying to convince me, I think.
And it wasn't like that. It was more so just during the recording of that podcast, I did feel kind of a little bit uncomfortable with having a platform where I'm putting this out because I don't really agree with it, astrology and stuff. So I was a bit okay, do I really stand behind putting out this because it's kind of because my beliefs are anti-astrology and anti.
Okay.
So, and I didn't really even realize before we started recording, when I was it's mad to see how your religion and your upbringing imprints so deeply within you to just kind of reject those things. And then I was wow, it was fucking gone. That's so mental. And I remember. So
I'll tell you what happened. So we were obviously within the podcast a lot. We were slagging people. Obviously, we all know those girls on Instagram who are Mercury's in retrograde, and I'm a bitch this week as my moon's in Taurus, and all this kind of bollocks, which is obviously it drives everyone mad. I think memeable stuff on the internet, no matter what it is so annoying, especially when it's a trend, that way. When everyone was so fucking into Ariana Grande singing "Break Up" but then and
I think we also can see some influencers who want to use those memes to try and get traction to their own following, which is annoying as well.
So we were talking about that. We were slagging people who were always going on about Mercury in retrograde, and we were oh, it's actually in retrograde now. And I was explaining to Lindsay what that means, and that it's a lot of it is kind of based in communication, because Mercury, the planet, rules communication. So it's a lot of people who are misinformed think it's one thing when it's actually another, and they think it's bad when it's actually not bad. It's kind of neutral. But anyway, we recorded on the Friday. I was in Evans Gaff for the weekend, and my GarageBand opens automatically every time I turn on my computer, and the latest episode we record always pops up. And it was there Saturday, it was there Sunday, all G, no big deal. Then on Monday I was oh, I'm gonna edit this episode now, because I remembered it was 2 hours long. So I was okay, I'll record it, I'll edit it now so I'm ready, and then Lindsay and I were gonna meet up and do some show stuff on a Tuesday. And I opened it up and it was just all waveforms are missing. I was huh? It was as if we recorded nothing, but there was 2 hours of content with a flat line.
And megabytes.
Oh yeah, with megabytes. One which was 2 gigabytes, which is the full, and this is the weirdest thing. I saved it to my computer, an SD card,
that was the weirdest thing.
A USB stick. So and all of them corrupted. I was how is this fucking happening? And I had Evan's brother, who's a sound engineer, trying to help us with getting it back. And I was you know what? Look, this is just a sign that the episode wasn't ready to go out this week, we'll re-record it, we'll have a better kind of idea of the route we're going to go down. Maybe I'll have to do a little bit more research because like there was even some stuff like Jack was asking me questions like, where did astrology come from? And I'm like, babes, I'm not a fucking historian, like, you know what I mean? It's like, Lindsay, what is Noah's second quote in the Bible?
Well, I'd know that off the top of my head. No, it was, well, I mean, it's like sometimes these things in hindsight can be a blessing because it's like, okay, now we know the route to take, and we also, certain things that we maybe need to research a little bit more, we will, but it was just so interesting because I was kind of like, this is God telling me that we're not supposed to have this podcast out. But then I'm like, okay, we can take it a different route. But my sister, when she was in, my sister Fiona went to IDT, whatever it's called, the Dunleary College.
IDT, you're right.
It just sounds so weird when you say it, like IDT. But and she, for one of her courses, or for one of her projects, her and two girls, they were in this group and they decided to go and do a little series on like in the Catholic Church, what's it called when they're like exorcisms. So they were like looking into like priests and people who've like performed exorcisms. They were talking to people who had gone through an exorcism or people who witnessed them and that kind of stuff. So like they were wanting it to be this kind of creepy documentary style, but of like real stuff, like, and they were filmed it and everything, and it all went. My mum and dad were so anti them my sister doing this because she's like, you are engaging in like certain spirits and stuff like that like aren't meant to be touched. They exist, we can like acknowledge that, but like you don't mess with that other side of like the spirit world. There's a reason that the spirit world exists and there's a reason why we exist here, and we shouldn't be like intertwined. And my sister was like, oh, but she was so interested in it, and then like everything went corrupt as well. All the files and or all the recordings and stuff, and my mum was like, what?
See, I think the funny thing is that sometimes like people who are like super Christian think of like all of that shit as like woo woo kind of woo, but then they're the ones who are so superstitious about stuff. Like they're like, God, it's a sign. It's like, or when you use a lot of technology, 1 out of every 200 times you use it, it will corrupt. Like you hear YouTubers constantly like, oh my God, I logged in to edit my video and it corrupted.
Yeah, but it's just a coincidence.
That's what I mean, but it's a funny with the way two people can interpret it. You know, that way, like, it's like, if I interpret it as in, like, say, not that I blame on this shit, but like, you know, Mercury's in retrograde. Say, for example, I could interpret it that way, or you could interpret it in a way that, like, God isn't meant to letting us have it. You know, the way, it's just so interesting the way, like, you can have two completely separate interpretations.
Well, I think it's that, like,
for the same thing.
For me, it's like, I acknowledge, like, I wouldn't be, like, not believing in astrology or not believing in spirits or not believing in certain things. It's like acknowledging that they do exist, but knowing my place of like what I should be kind of messing with or not. I think that's from what was ingrained in me in my childhood. Yeah. My mum was never like, because I think a lot of like religions can be quite dismissive of like other people's beliefs. Like, oh, astrology is a load of cod, wallop, it's stupid, it doesn't exist, it's silly, made up shit, which like kind of just dismissive, even with stuff like tea leaves or tarot reading or fortune telling and stuff like that. Like, no, that's crap, it's just a money driven thing. But like my mum was always like, no, it's really powerful, it's like, you know, as in like it does exist, it is true, but it's just that like we go the other way, like, you know.
And I think where my like opinion for that would be different was that like, which we kind of got to in the podcast, but I don't think that's when I kind of like stopped the conversation because I think this is a whole other podcast, really.
Yeah.
Because we were just going down a rabbit hole.
It was just so.
It was going really serious, but it was meant to be a bit of fun.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, I understand that like you can acknowledge that two things may exist. Like, I'll still be skeptical. Like, I love a bit of astrology, but there is nothing within me that is like preaching to the choir that like this is true, this is an ultimate truth, and this exists. I would never say that about anything, unless I like fucking knew, which like who does? No one does. But like I think that like you can acknowledge both, but just because one is over here and one is here, it doesn't mean that one is bad, one is good, and one is evil. That's where my opinion would be different. Where it's like I, with like God or whatever, like if I like acknowledge the existence of God, I wouldn't see my kind of interest in astrology to be anti that, because as long as people have believed in God, people have also acknowledged astrology, and it has never like.
I know, but it's just that it's written in the scriptures. So if you are like aligning yourself to a certain religion, then there is like the scriptures that do say not to do that. So it's not that you're just like. No,
I know, and that's. I know. I'm just saying, for my belief system, I'd just be like, if anyone is like, don't do this, don't do that. That's where like my belief system would be just different to that. It's just the difference of like being, I guess, interesting, which is like having like a spiritual aspect and then actually kind of being more aligned to like an organized religion. You know that way, because in one you've kind of got like
For me,
scriptures
it's like, 'cause I
telling
wouldn't
you.
attach myself to any form of like
Yeah.
organized religion, and because I was brought up in that, and like
Yeah.
the way I live my life would never be able to, it just wouldn't work. Like I wouldn't be accepted in any organized religion, so therefore I'm not anti it, because I know people find a lot of comfort in the community of
Totally.
religion and stuff like that, but I just wouldn't bother with that, because it's just not how I live my life and wouldn't ever like mesh with my life. But yeah, it's more like it's kind of like having some form of guidance, I guess.
Yeah.
And just like, I think over the past year, I think we've grown loads this year. We've had loads, even through the podcast, just being able to like listen back to yourself and a long form conversation and stuff is so interesting, because you find loads out about yourself that you wouldn't necessarily.
Especially like your ways of communication.
Totally,
It's
or your beliefs. Sometimes you can say something like on a public platform, which is our podcast, and
Yeah.
I'll listen back and be like, I don't even believe or agree with my own damn self.
That happens to me so much.
Which is so weird.
It is weird, and then people always, excuse me, burping. That's shout out to the girl who says I'm always fucking clearing my throat and shit. But especially when you're like, what was I saying?
When you're listening back and you don't agree
Oh
with
yeah,
yourself.
people always throw like hypocrite in our face, and I'm like,
Yeah,
but that's
they
like the point of our. And like, it really, like, when people are like, you always contradict yourself, and I'm like, that the thing that like I can take it when like I'm like, we do contradict ourselves. Okay, I understand that, but when people say it to us, it's in such a way that like you shouldn't be, and I'm like, I would as a listener, and I think the reason why our content like is relatable to people, is that we contradict ourselves and we leave it in. I think that's an interesting type of conversation. I think that's a real conversation. The reason I don't like so many podcasts is that like they're here and they're prepared and they've got all the facts, and that just doesn't, it's not human to me.
It's not human, yeah. And a lot of those more kind of curated podcasts, like we don't write notes for our podcast, like we just, it's like an off the cuff kind of conversation where we like will have an idea of a topic that we're talking about, or a couple of different topics.
We have like
and discuss
the building blocks of the episode, as in like topics. But like if it starts to go down a route that we find interesting, we kind of have this like mind wave of like being like, oh, let's discuss this for a while, and one thing can be slagged off if we found another thing.
But also like I think what's so kind of boring about social media is like, say with an Instagram caption, that's curated, you've written that, you've rewritten, you've taken that out.
Yeah.
And you know, then you're putting it up, whereas like, so a lot of like natural conversations are lost, or like in the online community don't exist in like how natural conversations go down. Like I love that our podcast is kind of like a pub chat. It's kind of like that when you get a bit looser and you're just kind of saying things that are a bit more outrageous. It's not like office chat, it's not like chatting to your parents, it's like you just kind of being
It's
more
not curated.
It's just being more of your true self, and
Yeah.
like being a bit I am going to say that.
It's a chit chat, and like the thing is I think where people get confused over it with our podcast is that like, yes, we may contradict things that we've said in previous podcasts, but I'm like, it's not contradiction if it's like I've changed, I'm acknowledging I've evolved my opinion. And also like that shows, that's just a more interesting kind of, like we're in a world where everything is so curated. The last thing I want is like a curated like opinion. You know, that way a curated opinion is just so like,
or even just the disability, like people disable themselves from growth. They want to be at a certain point that is like perfectly PC, like whole. I have always been this person, whereas like we always say, you can grow, you can wake up tomorrow and be a different person. Like you can be like, look back at how you were even yesterday, or how you handled a different situation, and be like, okay, I didn't like how I reacted to that, or my opinion maybe wasn't like as solid as I thought it was. And you can change and grow, and that's like especially what happens through conversation with friends or people who have like differing opinions. I was listening to a podcast today with Ovi from Love Island, and he was talking about like Amber and her growth on the show, and it's like got me thinking of like people in, say, reality shows all the time, like mostly like in reality shows, the like winners or the people, the most memorable people are the ones who've had like a vulnerable growth and like loads of different
character development.
Yeah, we love that because it's kind of like, I mean, that's inspiring to me, seeing how like, and watching people just grow and change, because it's like boring seeing someone be like, because everyone has got somewhere. Like if you follow someone who seems to be like really disciplined and mature and positive, I would prefer to know how they got there, because I don't think you're just born that way. You have to like train yourself to be a certain type of way.
Defo, 100%.
So that's that.
That's
we
the bet on
are
that.
gonna do now a little bit of a chitty chatty life update. So dying.
So, I might be moving in with Boo Boo.
Yes, Boo Boo lives 2 miles up the road from me.
It's so bloody handy. I'm not gonna lie, huge advantage of moving in with them.
Well, I mean, because we were talking about this. I mean, Jenny has been basically, you kind of are like moved in. You're one
I'm
foot
like
in the
shared
grave.
custody at the moment.
You're
I'm
one
like,
foot in the grave.
I'm like weekends with Daddy.
Well, a long weekend.
Friday, and then I record with you on Monday.
Yeah. How often would you think you were like seeing him
I'd usually see him on a Friday, and then I'd leave on the Monday morning.
and not see him during the week?
Yeah. That's kind of how it is at the moment.
So it's kind of
just with work, and I've been kind of busy, and we've been recording Mondays, and then we might do something on Tuesday, and then just the way. I mean, the odd time, but like now that it's like he's also like training for this mad thing he's doing next weekend. Oh my god, it sounds like hell.
I can't.
40-hour like SEAL training in fucking Spain, no sleep, exercise.
No sleep for 40
they don't,
hours.
40 hours, it's non-stop there, and like it's all like, and now you're going to be building a boat, and you've just sailed the boat over, and it's all actually, it's mental. Like apparently last year on it, someone forgot one piece of their gear, and they always do 800 burpees.
Oh!
And if anyone fucked up, they had to start again.
What, as in didn't do the burpee correctly?
Fully, yeah, he was like, start again.
I could never,
I know, everyone was like, I can barely do 10.
No, literally, burpees are like torturous.
So he's doing, so like in the last month or two, actually probably since EP, he's been like training loads. So like, I've just been kind of letting him, we just kind of have been going out on a date on the weekend.
Because men are difficult to be around when they're, people are difficult to be around when they're training, and when they can't be as like indulgent in like food, or
because
just
he's
like
not
chilling.
drinking and stuff.
Yeah.
He hasn't drank in like 2 months, so it's like, and because he has an end point to it.
2 months he's not drinking?
I think so, yeah. At least 6, it's at least 6 weeks.
He loves it, well.
I know, but like, so he's kind of like, and because it's an end point to him, it's this thing, it's kind of like, we're like, okay, let's just slag off the fucking going out on like boozy dates, because it's not really fun for me if I'm like getting solo locked.
Never is that fun. Well, I'm kind of in that situation with
Yeah,
Jimmy.
because Jimmy's not drinking as well.
Jimmy hasn't drank for like a good while now, close to a year I'd say.
And he always goes off and on it.
He's really disciplined, like Jimmy's like, when he makes a decision, but I prefer
Men are like
him.
that.
Yeah, I prefer him not drinking.
Yeah, because for a while you thought you preferred him drinking. I remember when one of the first times, I don't know which time it was, you guys broke up and he wasn't drinking, and you were like, he's just not that much fun anymore. And I think it's like an evolution of your relationship now that you can see that like you don't need to be like
I think
getting
he more evolved, because I think when he first stopped drinking, he did it a couple of years back when we were together, and he was like anti-drink.
Okay.
So it was like, just like kind of anti the whole culture, and a bit like, I just don't get it. It's like kind of like when someone decides to go vegan and they're like vegan, and then they kind of settle into it, and it's like not as much as a conversation point. So but now he's like able to be around, like I still kind of have like a couple drinks. And,
it stops you drinking so much though when your fella's not drinking.
Yeah.
Like
no,
I
it is
have,
good.
I have not been drinking it much at all, because like sometimes I'm like, because I'm like, if I'm making dinner or whatever, I'm not gonna buy a bottle of wine and finish the whole thing myself and get loco, and I'll be like, I did it once and I was so hungover the next day.
I just hate being around someone knowing that I'm being a bit looser with my words, and I'm being a bit like, whoa, and they're just totally not. Like,
I want to see this time. Sorry, girlies, my feckin' I might have chef. My feckin' thing. Oh no, we have 7 minutes left, Grant.
Yeah, no, it only records in 15-minute intervals.
So annoying.
My camera broke, Mercury Retrograde. When is it over again?
Next Wednesday.
Because like I probably have to invest in another camera, because like it's out of the warranty, and I'm just like, but
so
I don't want to buy it, because like,
you don't want to fuck yourself up again.
No, and even if I like believe in it or don't believe it, I'm like, that's the last thing I'm going to need.
Yeah, so you won't take the chance.
No, because just so frustrating. Well, because that one just broke like randomly. I'm so careful with my shit.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, ooh, I'm like anxious about buying it because I'm like, I'm just gonna break my hands again.
It's the most annoying thing. Like that's happened to me with so many electronics before, where it just like one day it turns on or doesn't turn on. And
Yeah.
you're like, I've done nothing to it.
So
I never
annoying.
move it. I have a case on it 24/7. Like, and then you got some bitch over there throwing theirs around, and you're like, oh.
And it's like so like expensive. Like if your laptop doesn't work, you know that you have to give it to the computer people, and they're like €700.
And
Like,
it's always
never
this
like an
unknown
easy thing.
number. You
I know.
never go in and be like, how much is coming? They're going to be like, it's going to be 150. They're going to be like, anywhere from 200 to 3 grand. You're like,
It's like we'll have to send it off and see.
the sending it off gives me
Sending it off. I'm like,
anxiety.
first of all, clearly this is a fragile piece of fucking shit, and you're sending it on a boat.
Yeah.
Evan's making the boat. But it's mad about like roommates and moving in with people where it's
Yeah.
like a big chunk of the reasoning, and not even in this case, but just in like the whole like humans live together. The majority of the reason I think is because it's like cheaper. Like this is why we have roommates. This is like, I mean, in a dream world.
I disagree. I think humans are inherently tribal. And I think it's a weird trickling down system of like us always kind of living with each other and having little things. Now, obviously, the roommate thing is out of kind of a lot of the time be out of like coincidence, but the majority of time you'll try and get roommates that you know and have your own little kind of like family.
But I think like if we were like if we had the ultimate luxury at our hands, and say in my luxury life, I would have my own house, gorge. Jimmy would have his own house, gorge. And we would live in between the houses, but like that Sex and the City movie, the second one, when Carrie's like, or Big is like, maybe you should stay part-time in the apartment because it was great when we were together. Like,
I disagree.
I think it is for like, maybe not, in this generation I think it's changing because like we are waiting so long until we settle down with someone, so like you have, I think back in like say my parents' generation when they were getting married in their kind of 20s, like usually you would have come from your family home and then into you know, living with your husband or whatever. But now we like a lot of the time go from our family home to like sharing with friends or whatever, and it's quite difficult to get used to living with someone.
Oh yeah, I mean I think I think it's never like a full decision, as in like you're not given the luxury to actually decide a lot of the time. Like when Evan asked me, I had to be like, okay, my first initial reaction was like no, absolutely not. The first time he asked me I was like no.
Why?
I think it scares me, the idea of it, because I'm just like, if I move in I can't move out, like, because I'm like, if you move out it's like basically being like we can't live together, and then it's like if you can't live together, like,
I think you create rules for yourself though, because I
think everyone does though.
Yeah, but like I mean, because you've said that a lot about like if you move in you can't move out.
Yeah, but well, it's true.
Well, you can't. Me and Jimmy live together, never back together.
Yeah, but you're going to be moving back in with each other. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and also you'll have to work on that. Like, it was very hard for you to live with Jimmy.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
And
like,
I think why it was a part for me was because I had lived on my own with Rylo for so long, and I really got used to my comfort. So it does feel unnatural for me to not have that space that I've had for.
And you guys moved super quick, so it wasn't even like getting used to living with each other. It was like, now we have a newborn child. Because it was really when Luna came that it was harder for you guys, I think.
Yeah.
You know, that way. So I think like anything like that's an understandable reason for like to have an uprising in a relationship, like a newborn is, and also in a small apartment in a 2-bedroom.
And financial woes, like we weren't.
And
like,
he wasn't working.
Yeah.
You weren't working. So it was like there was a multitude of things that like kind of.
That was obviously going to like not be an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, it's like it couldn't have been a stable situation because you two weren't stable at that time.
It is just difficult though, like, you know, you really do, like you have your room, and I know like it is just a change, like.
Yeah, I'm freaked about that. I was in my room last night and I was like, I love it here.
I know, and like, especially, I do feel it's harder for women.
Oh well, women are
Because
nesters. We're nesters.
We're nesters, but also like, I mean, from living with Jimmy, I really realised like the lack of like shit you need to do that I need to do.
Yeah.
As in, like, men shower and go, choose a quick outfit, like.
Oh.
Like the things that I do that take so long, which is if it's tanning, if it's showering, if it's just browsing online for ages, just looking at shit online, my shows that I love, like just researching weird skincare. I'll do that for a couple hours a night. Do you know, like just whatever I like, my little utopian moments that like is kind of like you can't really be involved with that. Where like Jimmy obviously doesn't wear a fake tan or shop as much as me, or like
I see. I feel like it would have been from going from. It always freaked me out the thoughts of living with a boyfriend when I worked a 9 to 5, because my time by myself was so precious. We'd be so limited. So it was like, you know, you get up at 6:30, breakfast, out the door, commute, into work all day, talk to friends at work. You come home. I usually went to the gym after work, so it'd be like 6 o'clock, maybe 6:30 to 7:15. I wouldn't get home till 8:30. So those like 2.5 hours of me time had to be just me. Like even talking to my mom and dad, I'd be like,
you need to decompress.
But now I think it will be easier in the sense that not only am I self-employed, but he's self-employed too. So it's like, if there is an element of like him working at the weekend, it doesn't really bother me. Like if we want to spend time together, it can be done on a Tuesday. You know, that way. So there is, that kind of gives me a little bit more. And also like I do have loads of time. He works like 6 days a week and it's mostly in here the majority of the time. And he probably will be more so in here like, you know, if I'm at home, you know, that way. So it kind of is a nice thing to be like.
But then you kind of, in some regard, because he has this studio, have 2 separate living spaces.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Which is like, that's the fear for me, and which I mean like that, if we had that luxury, I'm sure everyone would have a studio that they could work in.
Yes.
Do you know the way? Because like,
especially the whole self-employed thing is hard, you know, that way, because I'm going to have to be like, look, I'm going to be working from home.
It's also hard though, I can imagine, to like, because like you were saying, like if you have a workspace which is like social and you're going into an office environment where, you know, there's a lot of like, you know, pressure and being constantly being on throughout the day, it's a real nice, simple like luxury to be able to come home and just be like, I don't have to talk to, I don't have to kind of put on my face. Apparently the Japanese say that there's 3 sides of us. There's the people we show, the kind of public, you know, work people. There's people you show those that you're close to, like your really close friends and family, and then there's your true self, which is the person you show to yourself when you're like,
your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. It's all the same.
Yeah. Well, I just remember that though.
That's a joke. I'm having a JK hun. Oh, bitch.
I'm sorry. I didn't laugh. Sorry, girlies. They're all howling now.
Yeah, they're like, finally we get to see them fight.
Yes. But yeah, there is such a luxury of being able to just like even like I loved that when I lived at home. Like, I mean, my bedroom was like my own little mini apartment, because like I'd be down with my mum and dad and like, you know, having to like talk about my day and blah blah blah, and I could just go up and be like, that's when I was like relaxing and actually like decompressing. But it is just like with living with someone, you have to just kind of find a balance between the two of you. Do you know, like, which is like, just, it has to be a spoken thing.
Yeah.
We have to be able to be like, because like if Jimmy and I were to think about moving back in, like I would need, and he would also have his needs, because now I really know how I function and how I don't with living with someone.
Yeah.
Like, and it's weird as well, because I've spent so long living by myself basically with the kids. So that kind of, I think it's just gotten so much bigger. My need for like solitude. Yeah. It's something that I would not have been like someone who, like I'm quite an extrovert, but because I've been living on my own for so long, I've just trained myself to be more of an introvert, because I'm so used to spending time on my own. So you just kind of like mold around that. Yeah. Because I do die to get home and be like, oh. Yeah, I think we all do. It's like a nice little safe space, so to speak. But your like secret single behavior. I think you do have to also like, what I realized was like, you just have to evolve in life, and it's like you can't just be like, it's like you have to move on. There's a time for everything, and like, yes, ideally it'd be great to live in your mom's gaff for the rest of your life and get to live part-time in your boyfriend's apartment for free. But then there's also like, you know, the reality of the matter where it's like, yeah, like, you know, I was speaking to my friend Christina, hey, and she was just, I was asking her, because she moved in with her fella, and it was a similar situation, like he was buying a house and he really wanted her to move in, and she was kind of like, oh, we haven't really been together like that long, it's only been a year, blah blah, and she was just saying to me like, look Jenny,
like, you have to look at yourself. Like, why did you leave Michael?
Yeah.
Huge factor of that was because it wasn't going anywhere. She's like, now you've got a guy who literally is asking you to do it. If you say no, what do you want here? You know, it's like, it's just a way of kind of looking back at what do you actually want? You know, she's like, is it that you don't want to live with him, or is it that you don't, like, are you just scared? She's like, sometimes you just have to fucking, and she said such a good thing. So if anyone's in this situation, I was kind of like, oh God, you know, like, is it, you know, being a freak, being like, is he the one? Is this going to be it for the rest? Like, I was thinking all these millions and millions of things so far down the line. And Christina was just like, you don't have to think about that. She's like, all you have to think about is he worth the risk? Like, is the relationship to you worth the risk of it failing? Would you prefer to know now, or would you prefer to know in 6 years? And I was like, yeah, it is worth the risk. It's worth the risk.
I don't get that.
Like, he's worth risking something that could possibly fail for, because I want to know if it works or not. Do you know what I mean? It's like, as in, like, even say, like, leaving my job last year was worth the risk of failing to do XXXGALZ full time, because the payoff for it working would be so great.
I think, yeah, it's a difficult one, because, like, I mean, it is, on the other side, it's like, because my sister was in that situation, and I'm not saying this in your situation, it is like a seesaw of kind of two different sides, because there is the risk factor in both of them. There's the risk factor as in, like, you don't take that step, and then you won't ever take that step, because you're training yourself to not challenge yourself and push yourself to do something that might feel a little bit, you know, strange because it's different or whatever. But then I think it is the kind of, sometimes you're like, is it too soon? Am I risking something because I'm kind of doing it too quickly and stuff?
Yeah, I think, like, it depends on the person, it depends on the relation, obviously, and how much time you're spending with each other, and how well you feel you actually know each other. Because, like, I've been with guys, like, so when I move in, which will be January, me and Evan will be together, it'll be nearly a year, you know, that way. And, like, say when I was with,
that's not that long though.
no, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is that, like, when I was with Michael for a year, I knew him way less than I know Evan now. So yeah, it's like a year is a year, obviously, but, like, you can get really close, like, you can get really close to someone in a year, or you can know someone for a year and you can be hanging out with them a lot and be like, actually, I don't really fucking know them that well. You know the way when you kind of look back and you're like, oh, like, I know them, but I don't, like, know them. So it's like, yeah, it is a year. But also I think that when you're older, I think it is just natural for kind of relationships to kind of move a little bit quicker. You know, Evan and I were talking about it, and it's like, I don't really have, and neither does he have, like, and it's not to rush it, it's more just like, I don't have, like, all the time in the world to be like, I'll get to know you for like 4 years intimately before we decide to do anything serious. That was so something in my early 20s that is a luxury, to have all this goddamn time to get to know someone and to, like, but then again, I did that and it went nowhere. So I just have to try the opposite.
I mean, I think there's just no rules, and there's no kind of, like, recipe for it to work or not work.
Yeah, true.
So, like, you know, you could be in a relationship and be in your, like, later 30s and want to wait longer, or it's just like, these are decisions, and I think there's no reason, and looking like to a higher reasoning for it to, like, I mean, it's only going to, you're only going to know when you do it, kind of thing.
That's what I mean, so I have to, like, do it to know.
Yeah, and hindsight is, like, a wonderful thing. But, like, I mean, for me, it was my relationship with Jimmy, and, like, moving in super quick, doing everything quick, I wouldn't, like, that's just, that in some ways made me learn so much about myself, about how I function in relationships, like questioning my decisions, taking a step back, and being able to take a step back and see, are we going to be able to, you know, because obviously Jimmy and I have spent, like, time apart, and then we've come back to each other, so I'm like, okay, questioning when we come back to each other, like, has he kind of come to the same perspective that I did when we were apart, or is he just as willing to jump into it again? Which was that kind of fear for me, because we always were that, like, romantic, just, oh my god, I can't not be with you. But, like, this time, you know, we definitely both did learn from those things, so it just shows that, like, you can do the move in, move back, you know, we're all trying to configure how to.
You totally can, but I do think that, like, you and Jimmy also have more on the line than most couples. You have 2 children. So, like, I think that is, like, I mean, the majority of people you see kind of go through these, like, in and outs, is because they have a lot on the line. And a lot of the time that is, like, having a child or owning a house together, or you've just got more to risk. Whereas, like, say, for example, like me and Michael, we could still be together if we had a kid. but we didn't have anything on the line. There was nothing there for me. There was nothing to fight for in that sense, you know, that way. Whereas I think that, like, so I think it's kind of apples and oranges in a sense, you know, that way. Like, I agree with everything you said about you and Jimmy for your own relationship, but I think that, like, obviously some people are different, everyone's fucking different, but I think, like, to have, I don't know, just me personally, I wouldn't be, like, breaking up with a guy and getting back with him for a few years if there was no, like, deeper kind of
But I think
there.
the deepness there a lot of the time is the length of time that you've known each other, and that you've kind of
But
been
I think your relationship's on another level because you have a child. Like, that is like another level of intimacy of knowing each other. You're both parents and this little kid.
Yeah.
It's just a different connection. It's another level of connection. I don't think you have that when you don't have that shared kind of.
But also that is
such
like
a special connection.
If the other person is parenting or sees the child the same way you do.
Which you do.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm saying, like, that's, like, that is why you guys have that bond. Not the only reason, but it's a huge reason, I think, of why you guys are, because you both have this, like, no matter what happened, you always had that shared, like, love for Luna. So I think that will always bring two people so much closer, and you see this little kid that, like, you both want to make it work in some level for her.
No, I don't know.
I think there is.
There's not really.
I think deep down, even just on an animal level, I think you want to have, like...
I think if the two children were both, because in the same regard of, like, being a parent and having, like, two children from two different fathers, there's, like, you know, it's not like this, oh yay, we're back together, Luna has her perfect family, because it's also that sometimes I feel guilty that, like, you know, I made it work for Luna, and if I'm thinking from, like, Rilo's perspective that, like, it would be triggering, and it could possibly be triggering for him in the future to have, like, see that we made it work and that, like, we are, you know,
but it didn't
both
for
the
his
parents
dad.
and it didn't for his. So I think in that regard, I'm like, because with my parenting and my home life, it's very much like me and the kids. Like, we have our own thing. It's not like we have a separate thing, like where we're all together as a family, the four of us. But like,
sorry, go on.
The main kind of consistency in my children's life has been me living with them. Like, they've always lived with me. You know, obviously Jimmy moved out when we broke up and stuff. So I don't think it's like.
No, but I don't think it's the only reason. My point is just that I think it, like, would be another piece of the puzzle that you're, like, obviously, like, it's like a unified family. Like, that's the preferable outcome in this situation, I think. Definitely. And I see it in your relationship too. Like, it's obviously would be so much nicer to all spend time together and do family things together and, like, hang out together. And Jimmy, I know he's not his biological dad, but Jimmy's been in Rilo's life since Rilo was 2.
And Rilo loves him and stuff.
Yeah. I think that would be what I mean, is in, like, it's not that you're like, we're making us work for Luna, but I think it's like, it's another preferable
what
aspect.
it is it kind of just slots into your life. So say, like, with you and Evan, it kind of does slot into your life for you to live with them, because you spend a lot of time there, you both have similar enough jobs, you
it makes
can cohabit together like really well, so there's like,
it makes my life easier in a lot of ways,
and it makes his life easier, I'm sure, as well, because you're around for the dog and that kind of stuff. So it's just like,
even paying, like, I am in his house like half the week and not paying rent.
Like, you know, and I said that to Jenny, where I was like, that's the weird thing, or that's the kind of annoying adulting phase of it. It's like you kind of are like, oh no, I'm like acting as the adult by, like, living, you know, staying in my boyfriend's house, or like, you know,
like playing house,
but then it's like I'm not actually dealing with bills, dealing with the rent, you know, that kind of
which
thing.
are things that I think if you want to see if it will work, you have to there's only one way to find out if you could do that together, and it's by doing it.
Yeah.
Do you know that way?
But even for your own self, there's like, I mean, it's just like, it's the scary thing of, like, I mean, leaving the nest, because you're like, but the nest is, you know,
so nice.
It's so nice and free, and I don't have to deal with all the, like, stress, you know. Like, I remember living at home and my mum being like, the boiler's bloody broken, and I'm like, no way.
It's like, oh no,
so annoying.
Shit one.
Can't imagine me having to actually be, like, coursing with this fucking boiler man, you know the way. Whereas now, like, when you live, it's just like,
that even happened in Evan's house the other week. Like, the boiler guy was there, and I was like, oh shit, and he was like, fuck, I got this fucking mold in my hot press. I'm like,
oh,
that's shit.
That's gross.
So does that mean I can't put my fucking things in there?
You're like, I'm gonna go home. That's mean.
Ew, I don't want any fucking black lung.
I know, but that weird shit happens with renting.
Yeah.
So it's a good learning experience.
We'll see how that goes, but I thought I'd spill some tea.
Yeah, it's piping hot, girls.
So we are going to have a little look over maybe some notes for Vicar.
Ah,
If you're coming to Vicar Street
so
tomorrow.
Cray.
Tomorrow. Well, when the time they watch it. It's coming out Friday. Tomorrow.
This is so weird.
Bizarre. 1,000 people. How?
Us going on stage and seeing that, I've never. We're so excited.
If
It's
you
just
are
like-
coming, take lots of videos and tag us.
Yes, and let us know how it was, please.
If it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're trying to put on the best show for you. We hope that you love it, but we
Yeah.
need to get a bit of bloody feedback.
I
So
know.
let us know because we want it to be the latest night and so much fun and just a lol.
Yeah, so we will see you. We'll talk to you next week, and XXXGALZ will have a video for you guys next week. And yeah, thank you all so much for understanding about our Mercury retrograde.
I know,
And,
crazy.
yeah, let us know.
Bye, girls.
Bye.